dual citizenship, or dual if you're British. The comments I get about this topic range from, it's not fair you get to vote in 2 countries, to, do you really still have to pay taxes in America no matter where you live? And there are so many misconceptions and interesting clauses. Not that kind of clause. Also, I just realized that joke probably won't land because people in the UK typically say Father Christmas and not Santa Claus, but we're leaving it in. As a basic primer, I have been an American citizen since birth and a UK citizen since 2022, and I am sad that they changed the passports for the UK to blue because now they basically look the same. This is what they both look like currently. The American citizenship honestly was effortless for me. Mostly came down to my mom who had to grow me. But the British citizenship I did take a large part in. It came after about 10 grand total in fees over the years, 5+ years of stress, and the world's saddest citizenship ceremony that took place during COVID, so I couldn't invite anybody to come and watch, and it took place in one of the UK's ugliest council buildings, which the Queen, who was the monarch at the time, would not have approved of. Also, they said my name wrong, but that's just a fact of my life. Now, some countries do not allow for you to hold multiple citizenships, but the UK and the USA do, which is why I'm in this situation. Firstly, there's a key phrase when you are either on a visa or even if you have indefinite leave to remain, which is essentially a permanent visa. It's called no access to public funds. And this is written all over your visa to make sure you know that you cannot access a wide range of public funds in the UK. Obviously, these are things like housing benefits, income support, and social funds, but also applies to things like child tax credit, carer's allowance, and disability living allowance. And again, if you have indefinite leave to remain, which is kind of a settlement visa, not kind of, it is, you still do not qualify for these benefits until you are a British citizen. Now that I have British citizenship, I would now be allowed to access any of these public funds the same as any other citizen, despite the fact that I wasn't born in the UK. Now, voting is definitely on my mind this week and this year as the UK held a general election and the USA is holding its every 4-year presidential election. As a dual citizen, I was allowed to vote in both. Some people do think this is unfair. I won't be offended. You can leave your comments below. You will anyway. But typically, I find people think it's unfair when they believe I'm not going to vote for the person that they would vote for. Usually, they'll be okay with it if they think my vote will help their cause. In the USA, all citizens, regardless of residency, retain their ability to vote. You do it by mail, and it's called an absentee ballot, which is funny wording because the UK calls their version of it overseas voters. Whereas the US is like, why are you absent from class? You should be here. In the UK, I did not gain the right to vote until citizenship. You cannot vote in general elections in the UK until this point. Indefinite leave to remain, the permanent settlement visa in the UK, does not qualify you to vote, only citizenship. Now, if I were to move abroad from the UK as a UK citizen, I could also still vote in UK elections by registering as an overseas voter and having someone either vote by proxy for me or doing a mail-in vote like we do in the US. As someone who does hold the ability to vote in 2 countries, I do make sure that I do it. Because I have freedom of movement between the two, it is within my best interest to vote in both. And despite the people who comment that this is unfair, I suspect that most people, if presented with this experience, would also do as I do and vote in both places. One is your current home and place of residence, and one is your more emotional home that you still care about what happens to, so why not vote? Sometimes people ask me why I decided to get UK citizenship instead of stopping at indefinite leave to remain. Many people living in the UK only have this permanent settlement visa. They never move on to citizenship, and while they can't vote, they do have access to things like jobs, mortgages, and just regular life that they can live freely. But for me, the difference was this. Indefinite leave to remain will lapse in the UK, i.e. you will no longer qualify for it and have to start all over again if you move away for 2 or more years. Because, and rightly so I understand, the point of the permanent visa is the assumption that you are permanently living in the UK. And that is my intention, but I've got a lot of life ahead of me, hopefully, And I didn't want to be in a situation where an opportunity came along or I felt compelled to move back to the US for a few years and my status in the UK would be taken away. With citizenship in the UK, that worry is gone. They cannot take it away from me. Actually, technically, as I say that, I think they can if you're not a native born UK citizen, if you do something like really bad. But my worst offense in the UK is how bad I am at parking in small spaces, so I think for now I'm safe. Now, before we get into the major downsides and craziness of dual citizenship that presents a headache rather than a reason to celebrate, I do think it's interesting to mention the two countries' rules on running for office. We'll talk about the two highest political offices, the president in the USA and the prime minister in the UK. In the UK, you can be prime minister if you are a non-native citizen, meaning you are a UK citizen, but you weren't born in the UK. It's no problem. Because of the way the system works as well, this means that essentially the same applies to be an MP or member of parliament. You do have to be a citizen. You cannot be on a permanent settlement visa, but you don't necessarily have to be born in the UK. In the USA, however, the president must be a natural-born US citizen. The only other option, which constitutional scholars have essentially decided is okay and does count as natural-born, is those who have what is known as birthright citizenship. i.e., you qualified as a citizen from birth because one of your parents was an American citizen. Anyone else, such as someone who has moved from another country but then acquired American citizenship, is not allowed to ever be president. And that brings us to another interesting fact: citizenship by birth. Both the UK and the USA have rules that allow for a parent who is a full citizen of that country to essentially pass down the citizenship to their child, even if they're living abroad. So if I were to have a child in the UK, I'd have to register their birth and apply for their citizenship, but they would basically automatically have American citizenship through me despite being born in the UK. However, the UK and the USA differ on giving citizenship to a person based on the geographic location of their birth. In the UK, a child born in the country is not automatically a citizen. Only if one or more parents have full British citizenship or at least have indefinite leave to remain. If your parents are not that, maybe they're visitors or they're on student visas or shorter term visas, that baby born in the UK does not automatically have British citizenship. But in the USA, it's different. In the USA, it is the case that a baby born within the geographic confines of the United States is automatically a citizen of the US. This is despite the citizenship or status of its parents. This can be a really controversial topic, and there are reports within the USA government on the idea of birth tourism, the abuse of the system where essentially expectant mothers would travel to the US for the sole purpose of trying to make sure their child is a citizen of the USA when the parents have no ties to the country. But maybe those mothers should think again, because having American citizenship and dual citizenship, including the USA, does have drawbacks. And that comes in the form of taxes. And tax law. That means that no matter where you live in the world, no matter how long you haven't been to America, and no matter the fact that you make none of your money in America, as long as you are an American citizen, you have to file and pay taxes to the US for the rest of your life. Every year, you must file a tax return to the IRS because they want to know exactly where you've made your money and how. Again, this is foreign earned money as a non-USA resident. If you've lived in the UK for 60 years and make money at a UK company in your UK life, as long as you still hold that American passport, by law, you still have to pay taxes to the US. And there is a caveat, which I'll get to in a second, but obviously the UK is not like, oh, you're paying taxes to America? Well, then just forget about paying taxes to us. No, you would be double taxed. Now, the caveat and the saving grace for many is that the USA does have double taxation treaties with many countries. Luckily for me, the UK is one of them. This means that while American citizens living and earning in the UK do have to file taxes in the USA yearly, you are exempt from being double taxed until a certain point. So until you make the equivalent of $120,000, which is about 92,000 pounds, which is a lot of money. I'm not denying that. So effectively, many will not be double taxed, but shoot for the stars and all that. Those who do make above that amount will owe taxes to the US on the extra amount, while also paying the UK tax rate on that same amount. And if you live in a foreign country that does not have a double taxation treaty with the USA, and there are a lot that don't, have fun paying double taxes from the very first dollar equivalent that you earn abroad. Then there's the issue of your bank accounts and finances in general. Every single year, every American citizen who lives abroad has to fill out what is known as an FBAR. This is in addition to your tax documents, and this is a report of all the money you have in foreign bank accounts if the total amount of money is more than 10,000 equivalent US dollars. And while this is merely a report and not paying taxes on it necessarily, this does affect a lot more people than the double taxation in the UK. And even if you don't have a total of 10,000 US dollar equivalent in the bank accounts in the UK, you are not exempt from the IRS knowing your foreign income due to something called FACTA. From the US Treasury website, FACTA, also known as the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act, was enacted in 2010 by Congress to target non-compliance by US taxpayers using foreign accounts. It requires foreign financial institutions to report to the IRS information about financial accounts held by US taxpayers. Let that sink in. So when I go to open a bank account in the UK, I have to fill out documents about my American citizenship status because somehow the USA got these institutions to agree to report to them about my bank accounts in pounds in the UK, which is the country I live in and am also now a citizen of. Typically, big banks will not turn you away if you do fall into this category. They're just like, here, sign this document showing that America owns you. But you can run into problems when trying to invest or participate in stock trading in other countries, as they'll sometimes be closed to people who have American citizenship due to this reason and the extra headache. Now, you can renounce your American citizenship and you can renounce your British citizenship, but this is a rare occurrence and typically only done by people who do have a sort of dual citizenship situation brought about by birth rather than having ties in each place. So for example, someone who has lived in the UK their entire life, has only been to America a few times on vacation, but has a mother or father who have American citizenship and gave it to them, that might be somebody who considers renouncing their citizenship. I wouldn't give up my American citizenship for anything, not even the tax implications, because it's my home culture and where my family and friends live, and I couldn't even imagine entering the US as a visitor rather than a citizen. Also, we give out I voted stickers like this one I just got for voting in the USA presidential election, and I love a sticker. I hope this cleared things up on what it means to have dual citizenship if you're on that journey or just curious about the practicalities of what it means. As always, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.